I'm Stomski with Stomski Racing. Today we're going to talk about our precision shift coupler and make a few suggestions as far as installing it and indexing it and getting it set up for your car. The coupler comes complete with a set screw, and you'll only need a few tools, a few simple hand tools to install. You're going to need a Phillips screwdriver as well as two 13mm wrenches, or in the alternative, one 13mm wrench and a 13mm socket. You'll need Allen wrenches. You can use a straight Allen wrench, or I prefer to use the Allen socket style with an extension on a ratchet. It just makes it a little bit easier to get access to the coupler. It's through the access panel in the tunnel. Also, suggest using some sort of a marker, and we're going to show how that marker is going to help you index your coupler and make the whole synchronization process of getting the new coupler installed that much easier. And just a quick couple of marks will make the job that much easier. We're going to be changing out the factory coupler. This is a factory coupler that we've taken off of another car. Very simple to remove and very simple to install our new precision shift coupler. This takes a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, and we're going to go through that with you today. This is a standard factory coupler. This is the type of coupler that we're going to be removing and replacing with our precision shift coupler, with our SR010. As you can see, there's already movement in this coupler that doesn't have that many miles on it, but even a brand new factory coupler has a fair amount of slop built into it. It provides a very imprecise shifting experience, one that's not really conducive to accurate shifting or to enjoyment of your 911. This is the type of coupler that we're going to be discarding, taking out, and replacing with our precision shift coupler. You'll notice the difference immediately. All the input as you put it into your shift knob will be transferred exactly to the selector shaft on your transmission, helping you find that gear each and every time. All of our precision shift couplers, whether it's our SR010, our precision shift couplers for the 356, or the precision shift couplers for the G50 transmission, are based upon a helicopter joint, which is a very precise, very robust, universal style joint that very directly and very accurately transfers the motion in the input from the shift knob directly to the selector shaft of the transmission, which is an important thing, because every time you move the shift knob a certain amount, you want the same exact amount of motion to be transferred to the selector shaft, so that it is an exact and a direct and a precise movement that produces an exact and a precise movement in the transmission, producing accurate, predictable shifting. And that's why this shift coupler is such a great upgrade. While you're changing out your coupler, you might want to think about changing the bushings that are at the shifter itself. There's two primary bushings that you want to think about. One is the ball cup bushing, and the other one is the shift tube bushing. These two bushings are often neglected, and while you're at it, if you are changing out the coupler, it's a good maintenance item to change out these bushings as well, depending upon how your car is set up. If it has a console up there, or if it doesn't, it makes a difference on how long that process may be of changing out those bushings. If you don't have a console, it's a fairly straightforward process, and this takes a little bit of time. If the console has to be removed, it takes a little bit longer, but oftentimes these are neglected and kind of become a wear item. So just keep that in mind, and if it's not at this point that you're changing them, at some point in the future you should change them as well. Now from here, our next stop is going to be in the car itself. We're going to access the shift coupler in the back seat between the two seats, between the driver's and the passenger seat. On the tunnel is an access panel, and the first thing we do is remove the carpet and use our Phillips screwdriver to remove the 4 access screws to get to the panel. Okay, now we're in the back of the 911, right on the tunnel, removing the carpeting, and as you can see, where there's supposed to be 4 screws, on this car there's only 2. So this makes it a little bit quicker for us to get access, but technically there should be 4 screws. Go ahead and remove the 4 screws, and then remove the panel. The first thing we often see are a couple of different boots that may cover up the coupler. In this case, the boots are gone, so don't have to worry about it. But if you do have them, then you just need to pull them back to access the clamp in the coupler itself. Depending upon what kind of shape it is in here. If it's corroded or if things seem to be seized up, you might want to spray a little bit of penetrating oil, some sort of lubricant, just to go ahead and let things loosen up a little bit before you start this process. Let that set in for a while. Now, one of the first things I do once I access the coupler itself is I hold on to the coupler and the shift knob, and I move the shift knob back and forth and fore and aft a bit to see what kind of play is in the coupler. And oftentimes you can see that there's something loose or that there's play, and that helps determine whether you need to change out the coupler or not. Now, if things seem like they're going to come apart, one of the first things I do is I find a gear. And you can be first gear, it can be third gear, it can be whatever gear that you determine it's going to be. And once you're in gear, go ahead and use the marker to mark the shift tube. With essentially crosshairs. Once you've marked the shift tube, also put a corresponding mark on the tunnel itself so that you know where the coupler is indexed to the shift tube, to the selector shaft, and to your shift knob. And that's going to be your reference point and your starting point for when you come and put the new coupler in. Now from here, you can go ahead and start letting things loose a bit. Back out the set screw out of the coupler. And before you take that out all the way, break loose the clamp bolt. And back that loose. And actually in this case, we're going to replace the nut and bolt with a better set of hardware. And here we can see whether things are going to come loose, and they seem to be fine. Everything seems to be loose. The transmission's still in gear. We can go ahead and we can remove the existing coupler. And discard the set screw, because we're going to be using a new one that comes with our coupler. Installation is reverse and removal. Go ahead and start by putting the coupler onto the selector shaft and hand tighten the screw, the set screw, which oftentimes, because of the plastic requires a little bit more than just hand tightening, because of the plastic fitting that's inside the set screw. Now keep in mind the whole time that you're putting all this back together and as you're taking it apart, to make sure that your transmission stays in the gear that you originally set it in, and helps the indexing process as you put it all back together. Now we go ahead and we slide the shift tube and the clamp back over the splined end of the coupler, and here you can see the mark, our index mark on the tunnel, and the corresponding marks on the shift tube itself. Then that'll help you index and approximate your position as we put all this back together. We're replacing the hardware on the clamp with a new slightly longer bolt, a washer, and a nylock this time. And we're going to cinch it down, snug it down a bit before we index the shift tube to the new coupler. You can see there's just a little bit of play. We can go ahead, want to approximate location, and then torque it down. Make sure it's marked properly. Don't want to over torque the bolt, but you certainly don't want it to be loose. You want to make sure that everything's clamped and secure. Go ahead and at this point I grab the shift knob and see that everything is secure at this point, and that able to get full throw. And then, once again, double check the torque on the bolt. And double check to make sure that the set screw is torqued down as well. And we're good on both. From here, before you put the boots back in place and before you put the cover back in place, start the car, find the gears, see that everything is synchronized the way that you want it and where you want it. Make sure that you can find all the gears and drive around a little bit before you lock everything down. You might want to make some small adjustments fore and aft or side to side just to go ahead and index your shift knob a little bit differently depending upon the ergonomics and the comfort in your driving position. Otherwise, if you've indexed the shift tube to start with and gone ahead and followed these procedures, it should be very, very close to where it was to start with and allow you enough room for adjustment as you want to. And once it's done, buckle everything back up and you're good to go. As you can see, installation of our precision shift coupler is a fairly straightforward process. Only requires a few simple tools and just a little bit of time and patience. If you make sure, first of all, that you index the existing coupler, then take just a little bit of time to synchronize the new coupler, the process is very straightforward. Also, make sure that if necessary, you change out the hardware and make sure the hardware is all properly torqued before you start to drive. Make sure you do test the coupler, make sure it's synchronized the way that you want to, and if you need to, make the fine adjustments as needed and find a better ergonomic position for your shift knob and for your driving style. And in the process, if you can, at some point, keep in mind to try to change out the other bushings that are involved in the shifter, primarily at the shifter itself, the shift tube and the ball cup bushing. And lastly, let the components inside the transmission do what they're designed to do. Let the synchros synchronize, let the dogs engage, let all the components work the way that they need to. Speed shifting your transmission won't let those components do what they need to do. You'll be this much more connected to your transmission using our precision shift coupler than you ever were before. You'll be able to feel the detents, you'll be able to feel the synchros engaging, and it'll really add to the experience of driving a 911. Let the components work as they need to work, and you'll feel that much more connected to the car and that much more part of the driving experience that your Porsche is designed to give to you. Happy motoring. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in.